Now, millennials are all about fast, authentic communication. They really want you to be real with them, right? They look and value for authenticity. And so whichever communication mode aligns best with that, that's something that they're really going to value. Gen Z, whole nother ball game. So they are all about the micro aspect of content. Best example of this, again, this is more in the academic context, but I found this worked quite well in a professional context as well, or an industry, is that like I would ask them to write papers and he just didn't want to do it, right? It's like, I don't want to write papers. I don't want to write long kind of communication. I was like, fine, why don't you make a video about it? Boom. They were so nuanced in their understanding of screen, framing, music, aesthetic. In fact, in studies that I've done about Gen Z, they found that a majority of them are wanting jobs in media. Whether that's, marketing, data analytics, content design, that's something they really, really value, is their ability to get their message across in any kind of format. And you're right now seeing, they like, the immediacy of Snapchat, YouTube, TikTok in particular. That's such a hot button topic. I think that long term, that's going to grow at scale. And pretty soon they're going to be able to craft their own kind of, medium to get their point across and build community and connections.
Relational GPS is a universal framework for any business relationship across any generation. Most millennials have goals, passions, and struggles, right? My son Grant he's a Gen Z. He's got goals, passions, and struggles. John White, I don't want to age you, John, but I know you're an X. You've got goals, passions, and struggles. And you, Hornsby, you're my age. You've got goals, passions, and struggles. We've talked to people in Australia. I was just in Canada, South America. Everybody has in business has something they're trying to accomplish, something they care about deeply, hopefully, and what human being doesn't have struggles. The key is locating that. And we locate that through inquiry. We locate that through asking great questions. GPS takes time and investment. It takes discovery. It takes looking at a relationship long term. And there's an old saying, you can't judge a book by its cover until you read the story. The story is relational GPS. Every generation has it. And I find it a cop-out when I hear someone say, I just can't relate to this millennial, or I just can't relate to this boomer, or, how do you work with Gen Zs? Well, first question I ask is, what do you know about what they're trying to accomplish? Duh. Or, are they struck? What do they care about? Maybe we find those things out. A lot of folks on here are running and leading teams, and I'm sure you've got different generations on those teams. How are you interacting with them around their relational GPS? Omar's going to take you through a little exercise here on how to develop a relationship strategy for Meredith to get our proposal approved by her boss. I think that's what the exercise was.
Exactly. Okay.
Okay.
So this is where, right? And again, this webinar, we're really talking about context, modes of communication as being a way to land on building that relationship. So let's sort of break it down a little bit. So if we went back to our communication guide, Meredith the millennial had to alliterate. She comes from a kind of block that's really interested in authentic communication, fast communication, right? That's something that they really value. And so if I was to think about that, okay, so I have to be authentic, right? They value that. And then she has a boomer boss who, like we talked about earlier, needs a lot of background information, needs a lot of detail, and really needs it to be broken down in terms of how this all ties together. And that seems to be a gap that Meredith has in connecting with her boss. So we think about GPS, a relationship strategy then needs to think about what is our strategy with Meredith. And that's going to be, we need to be authentic with Meredith. That means that we need to meet her where she's at, right? So let's, maybe be more flexible in our communication. Maybe we should ask her, hey, how do you like to communicate? That's a great question to ask, and allow her to maybe fill in the gap and be like, oh, you know what? Here's my number, just text me. Fantastic. And then that way we can be fast and agile and also be authentic about, what we think and believe in terms of advancing that relationship. Secondly, on the point about vendor value, if we just talked about, hey, here's what we do, here's our product, yada, 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 fantastic. That's not really going to help her provide the value proposition of the vendor to her boomer boss. So maybe what we can do is think about ways that we can create visuals detailing what exactly the value of our product or service is, and tie that out to the business's goals as at large. Maybe there needs to be a tie-in, and that collateral will help them accomplish that goal to make it somewhat frictionless to get approval on whatever budget or whatever goal that Meredith has. So of course, this seems quite easy and cut and dry, and things are a little bit messier, but you understand how this tool gives us a framework as a starting off point to be like, okay, so now I understand voice of the customer from a building relationship standpoint to accomplish our broader goal and get our relationship strategy in